Hello students, here I am Gargi Pamar, Assistant Professor BBA in St. Andrews Institute of Technology and Management Group. So here I am back with an online lecture series on company account subject. So let's start with lecture. So in today's lecture, we are going to cover some more topics from first unit of your syllabus. And the topics are, which we are going to cover, acquisition of business and profit and loss prior to incorporation. We are going to cover these two topics from our syllabus. Okay, so let's start the lecture. Yes, the acquisition of business. What is meaning of acquisition of business? When a company purchases the running business of an existing big company or take over the running business of an existing company, it is known as acquisition of business. See? So when an existing company take over the running business of any existing company, when a company purchases the running business of any existing company, then in that case, such takeover or purchasing will be known as acquisition of business. Okay. Yes. Now, a company which acquires or purchases the business of another company is called purchaser, and the concern which is being purchased is called vendor company. So the company who is purchasing the business is called purchasing company, and who is selling their business is called vendor company. Okay. So when a purchasing company, purchaser company, will purchase the business, then that company have to pay some purchase consideration to vendor. So what is the purchase consideration? Purchase consideration refers to the consideration payable by purchasing company to the vendor company for taking over the assets or liabilities of vendor company. When purchaser company will pay some amount to vendor company in lieu of purchasing of their business, then that amount will be known as purchase consideration. Okay. Now we have to calculate purchase consideration in various questions. So there is three methods of calculation of purchase consideration. Let's see. First method is lump sum method. In lump sum method, a company will purchaser company will pay the whole amount of purchase consideration in lump sum. Let's see. Under this method, purchase consideration will be paid in lump sum as per the valuation of purchase company valuation. Example, if it is started that A Limited it is stated that A Limited takes over the business of B Limited for rupees 15 lakh. Here the sum of rupees 15 lakh is purchase consideration. Okay, so we have no required to calculate any purchase consideration amount in the case of lump sum method. In lump sum method, the whole amount of purchase consideration, total amount of purchase consideration will be given in question. Is always be there in question. Okay, so no need to calculate amount of purchase consideration in lump sum method. Now let's move on to next method, that is net asset method. So under the net asset method, how will be the purchase consideration calculated? So let's see. Under this method, purchase consideration shall be computed as follows. We will take all the assets of vendor company which is taken over by the purchasing company. So we will take all the assets of vendor company like building, machinery, debtors, service receivables, or inventories, or any other assets. The assets which is take over by purchasing company will write here. We will add on all these, and we will add on all these, and then we'll let liabilities that is taken over by the purchasing company. Okay? We will less all the creditors, bills payable, any other liability which is taken by purchasing company. Okay? We will less these liabilities from assets, and remaining resultant amount will be purchase consideration which purchaser company will pay to vendor company. Okay? So let's have an example. Let's understand with an example. Calculate purchase consideration from the following given balance sheet. Share capital 6%, debentures, salary creditors, general reserve, profit and loss account, goodwill, landed buildings, plant, store, debtors, cash, primary expense, and discount on sales. The transferee company takes over the business of transferor company on the following terms and valuation. The values placed on various assets are goodwill is taken over by transferor company at 60,000 rupees, whereas the value of goodwill was 80,000 rupees, but the purchasing company takes over the goodwill at rupees 60,000. Okay, land and building is taken over with 1,20,000 rupees. See here, land and building is for rupees 1 lakh. The value of land and building was 1 lakh, but purchasing company takes over this land and building at rupees 1,20,000. Plant at 60,000, stock at 75,000, debtors at 55,000. Cash not taken over. Cash is not taken over by the company, and creditors to be satisfied at 40,000. So see here, creditors is 50,000, but purchasing company takes over the creditors of rupees 40,000. So let's start the solution. What will be the amount of purchase consideration? In the case of net assets method, what we have to do? We have to take in consideration all the assets which is taken over by the purchasing company and will less all the liability which is taken over by the purchasing company. So here question specifically mentioned that goodwill, land and building, plant, stock and debtors is taken over by purchasing company, but cash is not taken over by purchasing company. So we will write down goodwill at 50,000. Land and building is taken over at rupees 1,20,000. Plant is taken over at rupees 60,000. Stock 75 and debtors 50. So total of all these is 3,70,000. Now in liabilities, purchasing company is only taken over the creditors. So we will less the creditors 40,000 by 40,000 rupees. The remaining amount will be resultant amount will be purchase consideration, that is 3,30,000. Okay. So that's it about net assets method. Now let's move on next method, that is net payment method. Okay. Under this method, purchase consideration should be calculated by aggregating total payment made by purchasing company. That means the total amount which is paid by the purchasing company to vendor company. We will add all that amount which is paid by the purchasing company, and will calculate the purchase consideration by adding on all these terms. So let's have an example. Example: A Limited taken over B Limited, and for that he is agreed to pay 5 lakh rupees in cash, 4 lakh equity shares of rupees 10 each, fully paid, and agreed value of rupees 15 per share. Then purchase consideration is ascertained as follows. So A Limited is agreed to pay 5 lakh rupees in cash. So paid 5 lakh rupees in cash. Then 4 lakh equity shares, which face value was 10 rupees, but the agreed value is 15%. That means A Limited will pay 4 lakh equity share at rupees 15%. So payment amount is 4 lakh equity share of rupees 15%. So 4 lakh multiplied by 15, that is 60 lakh. This 10 rupees is the face value of equity share, but equity share is issued at rupees 15. So total amount that is paid by purchasing company is 4 lakh multiplied by 15, that is 60 lakh. So purchase consideration in this case is 60 lakh. Okay. Yes. Now let's move on next heading. The next topic is accounting treatment in the books of purchasing company. For your exam point of view or for your syllabus point of view, the accounting entries in purchasing company is only relevant for you. Accounting entries in vendor companies is not relevant for you. Okay? So you have to study only accounting entries in the books of purchasing company. Okay. So let's start with accounting entries in the books of purchasing company. When assets and liabilities taken over by company. When purchasing company will take over all the assets and liabilities. When company will debit all the assets and will credit all the liabilities. Land account debit, building account debit, debtors account debit, and will credit all the liabilities to creditors, to bills payable. Now purchase consideration is also the liability for purchasing company, because purchasing company will pay the purchase consideration to vendor company. So this is also the liability of purchasing company. That's why we write here to vendor account. That means what amount will be paid to vendor. Still, we don't pay the purchase consideration. Purchasing company still don't pay the purchase consideration to vendor company. That's why for till now, when when the company is creditor for the purchasing company, that's why it is also a liability. Vendor company, we have to pay purchase consideration to vendor company. Still, vendor company is creditor for us. That means this is liability. Liability for purchasing company to pay purchase consideration. That's why we credit it to vendor amount. That means with the amount of purchase consideration. Okay. If we find any balancing figure, that means if debit side is greater than debit side, then in that case, goodwill account will be debited. So balancing figure will be debited in goodwill account. If in the case where debit side is greater than credit side, debit side is greater than credit side, then we will credit the capital reserve account with balancing. Okay, so when credit side is greater than debit side, then goodwill account will be debited, and when debit side is greater than credit side, then capital reserve account will be credited, okay, with the amount of balancing. Okay, then now we will pay to vendor. We will pay to vendor the purchase consideration. Okay, so on the payment to vendor, vendor account debit to bank, to equity share, to preference share capital, to dividend. See, here we have already seen that the total amount of purchase consideration may be paid in cash, or may be paid in equity shares, or may be paid in debentures form, may be paid in preference shares form. So if vendor is being paid, in that case vendor is the receiver. That's why we debited the vendor. Now bank will pay to vendor company on behalf of purchasing company. That's why bank is the giver. That's why we credited the bank account. And if purchasing company pays some amount in bank and pays some amount in the form of equity shares, then we will credit to equity shares. And when purchasing company pay some amount in the form of cash, some in form of equity share, and some of preference shares, then we will make the entry vendor account debit to bank, to equity shares, to preference shares. If a purchasing company pay the purchase consideration, some of in form of bank, some in form of equity shares, some in the form of preference shares, and some of in form of debentures, then the entry will be vendor's account debit to bank, to equity share capital, to preference share capital, to debentures. If some purchasing company fails to pay purchase consideration on time and it becomes late, then in that case purchasing company have to pay interest on purchase consideration to vendor company. If purchasing company will pay the interest to vendor company, then what entry will be passed? So entry will be passed interest to vendor account debit to bank, because vendor is receiver and interest to vendor is expenses for the purchasing company. That's why we debited the interest, and bank will give the interest to vendor. That's why bank is the giver. That's why we credited to bank. Okay. So these three entries will be passed in the books of purchasing company, and for your syllabus point of view, only for accounting entries in the books of purchasing company is relevant for. Okay, so that's all about acquisition of business. Okay, now let's move on next topic, that is profit or loss prior to incorporation. What is the profit and loss prior to incorporation? So let's see. When a running business is taken over from date of prior to incorporation and commencement, the profit earned up to the date of incorporation and commencement is known as pre-incorporation. See, when any running business of a company is taken over before the commencement or before the incorporation, still company is not incorporated, and before this, a running business of that company is taken over by another company. Then the time period before the incorporation period is known as pre-incorporation period, and the time after the incorporation will be known as post-incorporation period. Okay, so let's have an example. For example, X Limited was incorporated on 1st April 2006, took over a running business Y Limited from 1st January 2006, and it closed its account on 31st December 2006. Now the company X Limited is entitled not only to the profit or loss made by Y Limited from 1st April to 31st December 2006, but also the profit or loss made by Y Limited from 1st January 2006 to 31st March 2006. So see, what is the example? X Limited was incorporated on 1st April 2006 and took over during over a running business of Y Limited. X Limited take over the business of Y Limited from 1st January 2006, and company is incorporated from 1st April 2006. So pre-incorporation period is from 1st January to 4th April. That means January, February, March. So 3 months is pre-incorporation period because business is taken over on 1st January 2006, but business is incorporated on 1st April 2006. So from 1st January to 4th April will be pre-incorporation period, that is January, February, and March. 3 months will be pre-incorporation period. And it closed its account on 31st December 2006, and closing date of accounts is 31st December 2006. So post-incorporation period is from 1st April to 31st December. So April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So 9 months will be post-incorporation period. So the company X Limited is entitled not only the profit and loss made by the 1st April 2016, but also for profit made by the Y Limited from 1st January to 31st March, and so on. So we will understand this example in detail next of our video. Thus, any profit or loss made before the incorporation is known as profit prior to incorporation, which is treated as capital profit, and same cannot be distributed as business profit. It cannot be distributed by way of dividend. So, this profit that is belongs to prior incorporation period, that will be known as profit prior to incorporation, and this profit will be known as capital profit and will not be distributed in as a dividend among the shareholders. Okay, so now see what steps to be followed for treatment of pre-incorporation profit. So in first step, we will prepare a trading account and we will calculate the gross profits amount. Okay, so in first step, we will prepare a trading account and we will calculate amount of gross profit. Then in second case, we will calculate that gross profit in sales ratio and some other expenses on time of sales basis. So now we have to distribute all the expenses in pre and post incorporation period, and at same we have to distribute all the incomes in pre-incorporation period and post-incorporation period. So on which basis we will divide the total expenses in between pre and post incorporation? So there is two kind of ratio to divide all the expenses between pre and post incorporation. First is sales ratio and second is time ratio. So first we will calculate the sales ratio and then we will calculate the time. Some expenses will be divided on the basis of time ratio and some expenses will be divided on the basis of sales ratio. Okay. Now the expenses which is related from sales will be divided in sales ratio, and the expenses which are related to time will be divided in time ratio. Okay. In second step, a statement should be prepared for calculating of amount of net profit in after incorporation separately on the following principle. Gross profit will be divided. Gross profit should be allocated for the two periods on the basis of sales ratio. That means gross profit will be divided on the basis of sales ratio. Okay. All the fixed expenses like rent, salary, depreciation, interest, etc. will be divided on the basis of time. Okay, on the basis of time ratio. And all the variable expenses which are related with sales, which is connected with sales, will be divided in between two these period on the basis of sales ratio. Okay. Certain expenses like partner salary, director salary, primary expenses, interest on debenture, etc. are not apportioned since they are related to particular period. For example, partner salary is to charge on against pre-acquisition profit, whereas director's remuneration, debentures, interest, etc. are charged to post-incorporation profit. Yes. So let's see, some expenses will not be divided between in time ratio and sales ratio. They are actual expenses of pre-incorporation period or post-incorporation period. Let's say if partner salary, there is partner salary. So partner salary is basically related from pre-incorporation period. So all the partner salary, total partner salary will be mentioned in pre-incorporation period. No salary will be apportioned in post-incorporation period, because after the taken over the business, company become after the incorporation, the partnership form becomes the Now the partners become board of directors. They are not partners now. So they were partners at the time before the incorporation. Now they are board of directors. So partner salary is related specifically to pre-incorporation. Okay, and director salary is specifically related to post incorporation, because incorporation से पहले वो एक फॉर्म थी, एक पार्टनरशिप फॉर्म थी, तो पार्टनर्स थे, तो वो सिर्फ प्री इनकॉर्पोरेशन के लिए थी, और इनकॉर्पोरेशन के बाद वो पार्टनरशिप फॉर्म एक कंपनी में कन्वर्ट हो गई। नाउ वो पार्टनर्स डायरेक्टर्स बन गए हैं, तो ना उनके पहले की जो सैलरी थी वो सिर्फ एज अ पार्टनर्स की सैलरी, देन दे द पार्टनर सैलरी विल बी debited in pre-incorporation period only, and director salary will be debited in only post-incorporation period. Okay, so these are some expenses or incomes which are specifically related to pre-incorporation or post-incorporation. Okay, so list of expenses. There is some list of expenses which are specifically divided in sales ratio or allocated on the basis of sales ratio. So there are some examples of expense. Gross profit will always be divided in the ratio of sales ratio. Selling expenses will always be divided on the basis of sales ratio. Advertisement is all related to sales. That's why it will be divided in sales ratio. Carries outward is related to sales. That's why will divide into sales ratio. Go down rent is also related to sales. That's why will debited in the ratio of sales. Discount allowed, these all expenses, discount allowed, salesman salary, commission to salesman, promotions expenses for sales, distribution expenses, free samples, expenses incurred after sales services, delivery venue expenses, all the expenses are related from sales. That's why these expenses will be divided on the sales ratio. Okay. Now here is a list of expenses which are allocated on the basis of time. So let's see. Office and administration expenses will be divided on the basis of time. Salaries to office staff on the basis of time, because salaries are given on the basis of time, like 1 month salary or 2 month salary, quarterly or yearly, whatever the salary. So salary is generally provided for 1 month. So this is on the salary is provided on the basis of time. That's why it will be divided in the basis of time ratio. Okay. Rent, rates, and taxes are also paid on the basis of time. So will be divided in time ratio. Depreciation is also for 1 year. So depreciation is related to time period. That's why we'll divide it in time ratio. The painting and stationery, insurance, audit fees, miscellaneous expenses, distribution expenses, traveling expenses, interest on debenture, journal expenses fixed in nature. These all will be divided on the basis of time. Okay. Now, what will be the format of distribution of pre and post incorporation profit? So here is a format. There's two format, but we will not study the first format because this is not relevant for your syllabus point of view, and you may draft this format also and this also. So we will see the second one format. So what is the format? See, the format will be same as we have prepared profit and loss account. In debit side we will write all the expenses, and on credit side we will credited all the income. But the amount column will be divided in two parts, that is pre-incorporation and post-incorporation. And at the same time, the amount column of income is also divided between pre-incorporation or post-incorporation. And one more column will be draft, that is basis of allocation, whether this expense is based on time ratio or sales. So this is the format. In debit side, we will, as usual, we will write all the expenses, and on credit side, we will write all the expenses. But the amount column will be divided in two parts, that is pre-incorporation, post-incorporation, pre-incorporation. So let's have an example. G Limited was incorporated on 1st August 2011 and received its certificate for commencement of business on 1st September 2011. So G Limited was incorporated on 1st August 2011 and received its certificate of commencement of business 1st September 2011. The company bought the business of Messrs. Active and Slow with effect from 1st April 2011. Okay. So from following figure relating to the year ending 31st March 2012, find out the profit available for dividend. Sales for the year were 60 crores, out of which sales 25 crore and up to 4 September 28 crore. Gross profit for the year was 18 crore. Expenses debited to statement of profit and loss were: rent was 9,000 as a whole, salaries was 15,000 as a whole, directors fees was 4,800, interest on debenture 5,000, audit fees 1,500, discount on sales 3,600, depreciation 24,000, journal expenses 4,800, advertisement 18,000, stationery and printing 3,600, commission on sales 6,000, bad debts 1,500. 5,000 related to debts credit prior to incorporation period. 5,000 is debentures, debts which are related to prior incorporation period. Okay. Interest to vendor on purchase consideration up to 1st October 2011 was 3,000. Okay. So this is all about your question here. Now let's move on. Yes. So first we will calculate the time ratio and sales ratio. So sales ratio will be: G Limited was incorporated on 1st August 2011 and received its certificate of commencement for business on 1st September 2011. So see, G Limited is incorporated on 1st September 2011 but yet not received any certificate of incorporation. That's why the incorporation period will be considered till 1st September 2011. So from 1st April, company bought the business on Messrs. Saitm and So with effect from 1st April 2011. So business takeover from 1st April 2011 and it start to commencement of business or start to incorporate certificate, receive the incorporation certificate from 1st September 2011. So pre-incorporation period is April, from 1st April to 1st September. April, May, June, July, August, September. That is 6 months. Okay, sorry, 5 months. April, May, June, July, August. Okay, so 5 months. And from 1st September to 31st March will be post-incorporation period. That is September, October, November, December, January, February, March. That is 7 months. So 4 months, April, May, June, July, August. 5 months. 5 months pre-incorporation period and 7 months post-incorporation period. So time ratio is 5:7. And the sales ratio is: the whole sales was 60,000, which is related from which 25 and 30 is from prior incorporation period. So total 55 is prior incorporation period and 5 lakh is post incorporation period. And gross profit was 80 crore. So incorporations sales ratio for the sales ratio for this question is 55 raised to 5. 55 raised to 5, that means 11 raised to 5. 11 raised to 5 is sales ratio. Okay, because pre-incorporation sales is 30,000 plus 25, that is 55 crore. That means 5 crore is after post-incorporation sales. So 55 raised to 5, that means 11 raised to 1 is 11 raised to 1 is sales ratio. Okay, gross profit is 18 crore. The expenses are that. So first we will write the gross profit that will be divided with the sales ratio. And sales ratio was 11 is to 1. So sales in the gross profit will be divided into sales ratio. Okay. Now expenses will be divided on following expenses. See, first expenses is rent. Rent is related to time. So rent will be divided in time ratio. So we will divide the rent in time ratio, that is 7 is to 5. So we will divide it 7 is to 5. Salaries 15,000. 15,000 will divide the salary is always provided on time basis. So salary will divide it in time ratio. So time salary in time ratio. Directors fees. Directors fees is 15,000. And before the incorporation as a company, the members of that business were partners. And now they become, after incorporation, they become directors. So directors fees is totally related from post incorporation period. So directors fees will be mentioned in after incorporation. Okay. Now interest on debentures. Debentures can only be issued by a company. So before incorporation, that was a partnership form. G Limited was a partnership formed before the incorporation. After incorporation, it became a company, and now he can issue the debentures only. So interest on debentures is specifically related to after incorporation. That's why we mentioned 5,000 in only after incorporation column. Okay. Now, auditor's fees. Auditor's fees is 5,000, and fees is always provided, or salary or fees is always provided on the basis of time. That's why audit fees will be divided in time. Discount on sales. Discount on sales is related to sales. So we will divide this expense in sales ratio. So see here, discount on sales is divided on the basis of sales ratio. Depreciation is related to time. So depreciation will divide it into time ratio. And after then, journal expenses is not clearly mentioned that it is related to sales or time. So it is preferred. We will take an exemption that this is related to time and will divide it on the basis of time. Advertisement is related to sales. That's why we will divide advertisement on the basis of sales. Stationery and printing is related to time. That's why we will divide stationery printing on time. Commission on sales is specifically related to sales. That's why we will divide it on sales. Okay. Bad debts is uh, specifically related to sales because sales होगी तो ही bad debts होगा. Okay. So bad debts is specifically related to sales. That's why we will divide it on the basis of sales. Okay. Now, interest to vendors. Interest is always provided on the basis of time. So for 1 year's interest, for 2 years interest. That's why interest is related to time. That's why we will divide interest on the basis of time. So we will divide it on basis of time. So total profit we will calculate in gross profit. We will divide all the expenses, and remaining amount of profit is 41,700 of pre-incorporation period, and for after incorporation period, post-incorporation period, the profit is 1,05,000, and we will less all the expenses 66,500 from 1,05,000, that is 38,000. Okay, so this is all about your profit prior to incorporation, and this is all about your first unit. Here, all the topics are completed of first unit. So let's have some important questions. Let's see some important questions from exam point of view. So these three are the important questions from first unit. First, give the necessary journal entries on the issue of shares and forfeiture of shares. What do you understand by acquisition of business? Give the necessary journal entries in the books of purchaser company. And here is a practical question on profit prior to incorporation and profit prior to incorporation and post-incorporation. Okay, so this is all about your first unit. In next lecture, we will start second unit of our syllabus.